Hello friends, my name is Kapil. I hope you're doing well. So today I'm going to start a series on SQL tutorials in which I will cover the basics to advanced level of SQL concepts. So what makes it different? Although there are many SQL tutorials available online, however I have tried to make it different by including lots of hands-on practice assignments. So each video in this series will have 3 sections. The first one is the concepts presentation, second would be the demo, and third would be the assignments. So I have used Microsoft SQL for this tutorial. So I'll be showing you the demos on Microsoft SQL. In case you want to use something other than Microsoft SQL, you can do that. The SQL language more or less remains the same. Just a few changes in the syntax here and there. So I will recommend you to use MS SQL for this tutorial, and later when you have completed the series you can use any other one. So I will also include the link about the instructions how to install Microsoft SQL in the documents. Alright, so without wasting your time, let's begin the first lesson, basics of SQL. I'll start with the definition. As the name suggests, SQL is the structured query language. What does that mean? So in easy language, consider this as a language in which you can communicate with the relational databases to access or manipulate the data using the commands. Okay, the SQL commands. Now, how many different types of commands are available? So there are 4 different types of commands, categories of commands. So the first one is DQL, which is known as data query language. These commands are used to fetch the data from the database. For example, select command, very common. Okay. Next one is DDL, that is data definition language. These commands are used to define the structure of the data, for example creating or altering tables, columns, etc. Okay, like create or alter is the example. Next one is DML, that is data manipulation language. These commands are generally used to insert or update the data in the database tables, and the example is insert or update. Last one, the last category is DCL, that is data control language. It's basically used to grant or revoke the accesses to the users, example grant or revoke. Okay, alright, so far it's pretty basic till now. This video will have more of the basic stuff, but I will still recommend to continue watching it. Watching it, because it's always good to revisit the fundamentals, even if you know that this will make the upcoming major concepts easy to understand. Okay, so let's now discuss about what are the tables. Okay, so the tables are the database objects which has rows and columns of data. Okay, and what are the columns? Columns are also known as field names or just fields. It provides a specific information about the data in the table. So for example, if I have to find out the email addresses of all the records in a table, I will look for the column called email address or similar, whatever you have defined. Okay, now what are rows? This is also known as records. Okay, it represents each individual entry in the table. Okay. Now the next part of the video will cover the actual demo of creating a database, use a database, delete a database, create or drop a table using the constraints like not null, unique, primary key, foreign key, check, and default. Okay, so once you have installed the MS SQL in your system and you log in for the first time, it will first take you to the master database. And I'm sure you don't want to mess with the master database for learning SQL. So you need to first create a test database for yourself for your practice, and then use that newly created database for trying different things. Okay. So before I start sharing my screen, I will want to explain a little bit about the constraints. What are constraints? Okay, so constraints are the business rules which are applied to the data to ensure the reliability and accuracy of the data. What does that mean? Let me explain this with an example. Where there is a company A which has a database, and there is a field in the table called login ID. Okay. Company would never want that two people or more than one people can have the same login ID. So how can they achieve this? What they do is they put a unique constraint in that field. Which field? Login ID field. Okay, or the column. So that if by mistake someone tries to insert login ID which has already been used, it will throw an error and stop that action. It will not allow you to insert the login ID which has already been used. Similarly, not null constraint on a column ensures that no record has null value inserted in that column. Okay. For example, if email address has a not null constraint, then it will not accept the null value. You will have to insert something in that specific column, otherwise the record will be rejected or ignored. Okay. Primary key. What is primary key? It is a combination of not null and unique constraint. And what exactly is the key? Primary key? It is the identification of a specific record in the table. Similarly, the foreign key, this is basically used to create connection between two tables. So the primary key of one table is used as a foreign key in the second, and similarly primary key of the second table is used as the foreign key in another one. Okay, I will explain this in more detail later in the series. Now the next one is the check constraint. This is used basically to check if the data being inserted satisfy a specific condition or not. Example, if you want to enter salary of employees and make sure that it is not less than 100, okay, you don't want to insert any record where the employee's salary value is less than 100. Okay, what will you do? You put a check constraint. So what will the check constraint do? While inserting the data in the table, and more specifically in this column, it will first check if the value is more than 100 or not. If it is more than 100, it will let you insert the data, else it will ignore the record. Okay. Default constraint. So you can also define a default value of a specific column to feed. Example, in the email, although it's not a very good example, but yeah, if I want email address, let's say if the email address is empty in a record, I want email@noemail.com to be inserted in this record. Okay, for all the records where I don't have the email address filled, I will replace it with this dummy email address, which is email@noemail.com. Okay, too much of theory. Now let's move to the demo. I'll share my screen. Welcome back, friends. This will be a quick demo session on the topics we have covered in the theory part. So I have created a list of all the topics which we have covered in the theory. I hope you have already installed Microsoft SQL and the SSMS tool, which is nothing but the front end of the SQL server. So I'm going to launch this SSMS, connect it and you see that it will first log you in to the master database. So this is the list. Okay, so I just click on new query button on the top, will give me the query editor window. Okay, I'll paste all the topics which I have to cover here and comment those out. Now the first topic we have is to create a database, because we can't use the master one. So the command is create database, and the database name I kept it as battlefield. So if you see on the top left hand side, it shows master, and when we run the command it says command completed successfully. Next one is the use database. We have to use this database because we have to do all the practice in the new one. So the command is use battlefield. Run it and see it's ran successfully. So notice on the top left hand side, instead of master it says battlefield. Okay, so for any reason if you have to delete the database, you will have to first go to some choose some other database, and then you can delete this one because this is in use at this time. So on the left hand side I have created many databases, so I'll choose one of those, use it. I'm using use Rise Limited. Now the current database is changed to Rise Limited now, and we are in a position to delete our test database, which is battlefield. Command is drop database and the database name. Okay, so you see this command ran successfully, and the database which we had created in the first step is now deleted. Okay, I'll go ahead and create that again, because this is what we'll be using, and I'll use it. Okay, so the command is run successfully, and the next topic is to create a table. Okay, so I'll create two tables. So this, you just understand the syntax, you don't need to go in deep. So the syntax would be create table, the table name, and with the table name you will also have to mention the columns in the details. So I'll keep it department as a table, and the department ID is the first column, integer, the primary key, and next column would be department name, which is the variable character like text, and that's it, just two columns in this table. Okay, run this command and it ran successfully, so good. Let's create another one, create table employees. I'll keep employee ID as the primary key, integer. Okay, and employee first name as the variable character of the length 100. Similarly, I'll create employee last name, variable character 100 length. Email address of the employee, the name is just email, variable character 100, and employee salary. This is where let me put a constraint, a check constraint, so that if I'm trying to enter any value of the salary which is less than 100, it should not allow that, it should reject that report. Okay, so this is how you put the check constraint. Check employee salary greater than 100. Okay, alright, next let me put department ID in the same table to connect these two as a foreign key. Okay, because department ID is the primary key on the first table, and if we use it here it will be called as the foreign key. Okay, so it should be of the same data type. I'll just copy it from above. So department ID integer, which is the foreign key, references the table name department, the column department ID again, the same thing. This is a syntax. If you practice this 2-3 times, you will remember it. Okay, run the command and let's see. Okay, great. So it's running fine. Now if you want to check, on the left hand side, go to database, battlefield, tables, and the department. Let's see the columns. Let's see primary key. And if you want to check more details on employees, to see this employee ID is the primary key and department is the foreign key and all that. Okay, you can get more details on this one. Alright, I'll just minimize this. Now we have many more constraints which I have not covered. You may put the not null constraint in the email part like this. Just put the not null after you define the data type. That's it. But the table has already been created, so if you now try to do it, it will not do it unless you use the alter command, which I will cover later. But I will advise you to practice, try to do some research with those constraints, try to use it yourself, and let's see how it works. In case if you face any problem, I would suggest you to send a comment in the video and I will try to answer your questions there. Okay, so but for the practice, what you can do is maybe you can delete these two tables and recreate it with the different constraints. Like for email address, you can put the unique constraint or not null constraint like this. So drop table command is drop table, the table name. So I've deleted department and now I'll delete the employee table also. Okay, so this way you will be able to at least practice and get the hang of the syntax. Okay, so I think that was it for today, and I hope the session was useful for you. And if you face any problem, any questions, I would suggest you to please send me a comment. I'll be happy to assist you. And if you like the video, please subscribe or like my video. And thank you so much for your time.